This show is sponsored by my new business, MA Capital. I had success in my previous business acquiring companies before I exited earlier in the year. MA Capital is set up to support business owners on that journey, whether they want to sell now or they want to set up for a profitable exit later in the future. If this has piqued your interest and you'd like to work with me, head over to macapital.co.uk. So welcome back to the Fast Pound, Slow Pound podcast. It's actually the first one that we record in 2025. So you're our first 2025 guest, Andrew. But today our guest is raising finance, building businesses, buying businesses, doing property stuff, a proper entrepreneur. And when I seen him online, I thought, I've got to have a conversation with him. Guys, just a quick one. Over 75% of our listeners aren't subscribed. So if you are enjoying this, please show some support by liking, commenting or subscribing wherever you're watching the podcast. It'll allow us to keep getting on amazing guests and it's massively appreciated. Back to the show. Do you just want to give us a brief introduction to yourself, Andrew?
Yeah.
We'll crack on.
Okay, so thanks for having me. I'm Andrew. I'm a former, I suppose I still am a doctor. 20 years in the NHS, a bit more than that, and getting on for 30 years if you include all the medical training. Very whistle-stop history. Started off as a surgeon in London, moved up here to pursue being a consultant. Government cocked up medical training, ended up in general practice. Got investigated by the GMC over an admin issue in 2012. Some paperwork, basically. I had 18 months of my life where I was depressed, lost 3 stone in weight, thought I was going to get struck off. Nothing happened, but during that 18 months, it was just painful, to be honest with you. I lost all love for the profession. The fact that you think you're in this stable job, your parents have always told you, get a good job after going to school, you know, and you'll be right, you'll be set for life, and that was the mindset that I had.
Yeah.
Turns out that actually something as simple as a slip of a pen, when nobody's involved, can end you up in hot water that's not even of your own making, really. So I've kind of realised at the time, I'd just moved into a big house. I had all the consumer trinkets. You know, I'm from a council estate. That's my background. So I'd never earned good money, and GPs at the time on 6 figures, so I thought I was earning good money, so I had a nice car and I moved into a big house and I was fully leveraged, and then I got this thing and my medical defence union said, you do know, Dr. Threadgold, that people can get struck off for this? And I was like, you're shitting me, you know? So surely not. Yes, you can. So I realised at that point that I can't be reliant on, you know, what if I lost my job? Who's going to pay for this stuff? Do you know what I mean? I've got a family and, you know, and big bills. So something had to change. And during that time and over the years afterwards, I've been involved in growing a group of medical practices through acquisition and merger. So we built a group of practices before I finally retired from medicine last year. So that kind of, I had that anyway, and I'd always done various businesses. One of my first businesses was providing private medical services to very famous people that were on tour, like people like Madonna, for example, and stuff like that. So I always had like a business head on my shoulders throughout my medical career. And then did a few things, ended up in property, tried property for a bit, saw it worked, saw that because of my background, I probably am a bit different to other people in property. So obviously I had earning potential, so I could underwrite loans if people were going to invest with me. I had ethics of being in the most regulated profession on earth, especially in the UK. So I carried myself and dealt with people in a different way that stood out amongst a lot of the people in property. There's certain people that just don't look like they've got any ethics, that have training companies and things like that. I'm sure we all know who we're talking about. And so I became quite good at it quite quickly, blow my own trumpet a bit, and scaled from a tiny little terraced house around the corner from here in Darlington to, in the last year, we bought 40 houses, a hotel, a couple of guest houses, 3 trading businesses.
Just in the last year?
Yeah, in the last 12 months, yeah. So it's...
so when did that journey start then?
COVID.
Right.
Yeah, so the whole kind of entrepreneurial awakening happened in 2012, 13, 14 when I was being investigated by the GMC.
Yeah.
And then I did a lot of I did a qualification in portfolio management and stockbroking. My first exit from medicine was going to be as a hedge fund manager. But then I realised when you do it properly and you learn about stocks and shares properly, the amount of time and effort you have to put in to even put a trade on isn't what people think about looking at little graphs and Fibonacci charts. That's all bullshit. That's what people use to sell courses. To do it properly, there's a lot of research that goes into it. And I thought, this is just as bad as medicine. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's just as much time and effort. But that's a qualification I've got. And then, so I think we got our first house in 2019. Where are we? 2025, so 6 years. It's been a mad ride, really.
It sounds it as well.
Yeah.
Momentum sounds like it's taken effect, though, from your first house in 2019 to fast forward 5 years and you're doing like business acquisitions, 40 properties in a year.
Yeah, it's it all kind of, it opened, property was the gateway to opening up kind of a revelation in the way I think about stuff. Because originally I knew nothing about creative deals, creative structuring. I knew nothing about the mindset around money. I knew nothing about all this stuff. But as I evolved into it, and I commit lots of time, I'm a massive advocate of things like books. So I read 50 books a year religiously. Just last year, my Audible came up. I had 25 hours just of Jim Rohn last year. So I read a lot of stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And that,
through Audible, or do you like the?
Oh, because it's habits, isn't it? It's changing habits. So instead of reading magazines on watches, I'd read, I'd put an Audible in because. And things like in the car, I don't listen to the radio ever. I haven't listened to the radio for 5 years. It's always an audiobook. So, and when I've got my businesses in like Norwich or Warwickshire, and I'm in the northeast, I'm in the car quite a lot. Or if I'm going to Old Trafford because I have a season ticket at United, for what that's worth. It's like watching Everton. I can get through books all the time now, so it's like a little heaven for me, a little bit of tranquility where I can learn stuff.
Where are you originally from?
Near Manchester.
So you're from near Manchester, that's obviously why you sport.
Yeah, I used to go to Old Trafford as a kid, standing in the Stretford end when Ron Atkinson was in charge.
And Teesside was an exciting prospect to come here.
Well, Teesside was because in medicine, I believe lots of doctors could do really well in business if they flick the switch, because the doctors are really goal-driven. So you've got a goal to get into medical school. At Barts where I went, it was 1 in every 1,000 applicants that got in. So you've got to get good grades, and you've got to do stuff to meet the goal to pass the interview to get in. So you do that. Then you've got your exams to pass, otherwise they kick you out. And then the next step was being a surgeon. And to become a surgeon is an incredibly competitive specialty. In London, where I was, it's uber competitive, and I didn't have the right double-barreled surname to get to be a surgeon in London onto the training course. So I had to go elsewhere, and a course came up or the rotation as it's called, came up at North Tees and Hartlepool. So I moved there in 2004, and did surgery for several years until I ended up going into general practice when the government cocked it up.
So what made you want to be a doctor? Because my auntie's a doctor, and we've seen the sacrifices that she's had to make. She's extremely driven, intelligent, and she's made a lot of sacrifices. And we don't know where that's come from. Obviously, so she's my auntie, so my mum's her sister, and then my other auntie, they haven't got that same drive. So we don't know where that's come from with her.
Yeah.
Because none of our family have been doctors before, but where did that come from?
Well, my dad was a vagabond, a waifing astray, a lot dodgy, and my mum was a seamstress. She sewed clothes for Marks and Spencer's. Nobody in my family has ever been anything educated, but I was all right at school. Didn't really need to try that hard. It was something I was all right at for some reason. And the only people that got out of my upbringing were either drug dealers or people that got into university. So I was lucky enough that I became a professional drug dealer, really. But it just so happened that took me out of the council estate kind of background and the very poor background down to London. And I've got to say, my parents were super proud. It was a reason for me to get out. But, I know everyone's got a sob story. I don't have a sob story, but my mum used to through the winter without the heating on, so she could send me 20 quid a month to send me money for down at university, because we were skint. We absolutely had nothing. She didn't know that I was pissing it up the wall, something that I absolutely regret to this day. But, I was a kid in London,
Yeah.
So,
you got siblings and stuff?
Not really. I've got a half brother who's much older than me. He lives in Portsmouth. Don't really see him very much. But other than that, it's just I grew up ultimately as an only child. It's a complex background.
Do you think that's stood you in good stead, though? You've turned that into a positive and motivation and a drive to want and do more.
Yeah, there's a lot of it. Like, without going too much into it, kind of my childhood wasn't very stable. By the time I was 20, I'd lived in 23 different places. I was always moving around trying to get away from something, or my mother was. Let's put it like that. So I always had this thing that I didn't want that life. I wanted a different life for me. And ultimately it's what education did for me. So I spend a lot of time thinking, I wish I'd not wasted all those years at medical school. Well, in actual fact, what education did for me was it got me out of that place, and it got me a way of thinking. It got me ultimately a middle class income, which was very kind of foreign to me. So it did a job. Medicine did a job, and it put me in a position where I could make other choices. Little did I know that I didn't see the kind of the fork in the road that I would have to take when the GMC investigated me. But you've just got to pivot sometimes and go with it.
Obviously, you weren't expecting that coming then. So was it sort of a drastic? Had you been thinking of like moving away from it for a little while, and then that come, and then it was like, right, I need to do something about it now? And
no, I was a career doctor. I wanted to be a doctor. I was very hardworking. For example, I was a full-time partner in a practice in Redcar. That was probably 70 hours a week, and then I would do another 30 to 40 hours overnights across the weekend in the out of hours, working when the doctors are shut, for the income ultimately. But I was very hardworking, and what happens when you've done that for years and years and years is you get a bit worn out, a bit burnt out of doing it. So I was already thinking, what else is there out there? And I already had other things that I was doing, such as looking after the musicians and stuff. So my life was very full of work. But what happened was I was helping somebody out by filling a form in relating to a patient's death. And that form carried a fee. And the person that was supposed to do it hadn't done it for over a week. So I did it for them, and I didn't want the fee. That person got the hump that I was stealing his forms for the money. It was 40 quid at the time. And I'd already said I didn't want it, and informed the GMC. And the GMC came and said, oh, is this person doing forms related to death for money? Or is he stealing them from other people to do them? Is there a rat off? And it was this guy that had rung the GMC, this fellow doctor, who I knew, I thought was a friend, had called the GMC.
It's crazy.
The crackers, absolutely. And that was the kind of where I thought, surely not, but turns out that's what it was. And I thought, I can't work in this environment. I can't work this hard, trying to do so much stuff, especially when you're devoting your life to other people effectively. Fine, I was getting paid, but I was doing a lot for the society, if you want to kind of sit on a high horse. And I just thought there's got to be another way, and that's what made me take that fork.
Yeah. So had you done acquisitions previously to that, or is that when it all started?
By the time the investigation was finishing, we were finishing our first acquisition of a practice in Middlesbrough.
And then it grew from there.
Well, that was the practice acquisitions, yeah. Mm-hmm. But shortly after that, so that whole thing finished in about 14, 15, and then I did the stocks and shares stuff. Mm-hmm. The practice was just consolidating. The medical group was consolidating, because as you know, when you put something else together and you've got 2 practice managers or 3, and then you've got different departments as heads of departments, and you've got to get them all singing into one hymn sheet, it's really challenging. So that took a while to settle, and then I got into property.
Are you still running that business now? Is that
No, I've retired from medicine
retired from that?
last year, 46. I set a goal to retire by the time I was 55, and I got out at 46.
Because the acquisition I'd seen was a security firm.
Yep.
So how do you go from medicine to a security firm?
I didn't want to buy anything in healthcare.
Yeah.
I absolutely did not
That's how
want.
I feel with agency and property now.
Yeah.
I don't want to buy anything like that again.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's to be honest with you, because I had to work all my life, like through med school, to even like when I was 14, I had a job at HSS Hire Company changing diesel generators to gas-fired generators. So I've always done a bit of mechanicking, even that age. So I've always worked all my life in addition to going to university. So I've done lots of different jobs in lots of different places, installing stuff, installing cameras, I've worked doors in places. I've been a medical secretary. I've done all sorts of stuff. So when it comes to looking at other sectors, lots of different sectors, I kind of speak the language already, or I've got a little bit of experience in it, or my family members got experience in it. My first acquisition was a physiotherapy company in Warwickshire. I knew I didn't want healthcare. I really struggled to get anything over the line. I spent months and months and months trying to get anything over the line in other sectors. So my dad had a period of time where he was a mechanic doing HGVs and MOTs on HGVs. I got past heads with a HGV MOT and servicing company. Got to the end of the road, got the finance arranged, and the guy disappeared off the face of the earth, and then came back 2 months later and said, "Oh, looks like I'm out of my exclusivity period now. As it happens this morning, I've just accepted another offer from somebody else." So all that time and effort was wasted. Yeah. So I spent a lot of time chasing dead ends. And then in the background, there was this physio company that I'd been kind of talking to for quite a while. And I just thought, I've got to do one, just get one over the line. And it was a good one. So I went into it, just so happened it was health.
So I was thinking that, you said you weren't going to...
I know, I know the sector. I'm comfortable. Do you know what I mean? I know the culture within health and all the rest of it. And then as we were getting going with that, somebody reached out to me and said, this company was being purchased, but the buyer has pulled out because he won't sign a PG on anything. Now, in property, you sign PGs. PGs aren't something that is uncommon. And I know that in the M&A world, there's a lot of training that says buy a business without any of your own risk, without any of your own money, just like a lot of property courses.
Yeah. Yep.
And it just doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
And they'd seen that we'd already transacted, they'd seen that I was quite busy, and they said, would you be interested? So we had a look at it. It's a fabulous little profitable enterprise. I know a bit about the security industry. It's got an MD that's stayed in it. It was a bit of a no-brainer. So that's how that one came about.
Where did you get the confidence to speak to like HGV companies? Because it's obviously totally different to what you were doing. And did you just have it? Did you feel like you were, imposter syndrome?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
You just got to do it.
Yeah, I mean, but I've had 30 years training on speaking to people.
Yeah.
Like when you go to medical school, you don't just do textbook work. There's a lot of it that's about communication skills. There's years that goes into teaching people. You wouldn't think it, some of the doctors I know, but there's years that goes into teaching you how to speak to people and how to carry yourself and little cues, reading people, and stuff like that. So I can speak to people. That's not a problem. The issue is you think that they will find out, like they will see through you. That's where the self-confidence things come from, And then I think to myself, I read I listen to a lot of Brian Cox, the astronomer.
Yeah.
And he says, the galaxy, just in our little galaxy, there's 20 billion stars that have each got planets around them. And if you look at Earth, it's like fly shit on a map. It's so far away. Yet there's people causing wars to try and own a fraction of it. And we think that what we do matters. we're that arrogant that we think that what we do matters. It doesn't make any difference. In another few trips around the sun, people won't remember us, won't remember your name.
Yeah.
So why do we take ourselves so seriously? So just have a go. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
You know, it'd be a nice conversation. You might learn something. So why not? Why not? What have you got to lose? You started off with nothing. You're going to end with nothing. Life's like a game of Monopoly. It all goes back in the box at the end. You can't take any of it with you. So have a go. God's sake, man.
Yeah, 100%. The reason I like M&A, I think it's probably the biggest leveraged thing you can do in terms of your time and your growth. And like I said before we come on, like the deals that I've done satisfied my ambition for growth, and I think that's why I like it, because it's like, you know, you just say, you know, you're pushing yourself, and like, what's the worst that can, you know, it all goes back in the box, doesn't it, at the end of it, you know.
Yeah.
You might as well try.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is when you realise, I think I post all the time on my social media and stuff, like when stuff occurs to me, I try and post it in case anybody's listening, usually not. But when you realise just how little time people spend thinking about you, you forget to worry about what people think of you. Because people aren't thinking about you, they're thinking about their own stuff, they're thinking about their own shopping list, the bill that they've got at the end of the month. They couldn't give a shit that they've had a conversation with you. They're not bothered. They'll ask you, you know, why trucking? You know, that was the common question. But why do you get into trucking? Well, I used to sit on my dad's knee in his HGVs. You know, I used to go in on a Saturday whilst he was washing the trucks off. I used to be there with my Merco overalls on when my dad was fixing engines, which is how I knew how to change gas into gas engines on, you know, on stuff at the side of the road. It's not like, there's truth behind what I'm saying, because I've done a lot of stuff and I've got an interest in it, and I'm clearly not a stupid person. I'm not very clever, but I've got a lot of drive, and people can see that. You know, as long as you are trustworthy, you've got ethics, and you do what you say, and integrity is the most important thing. I always say, judge people on what they do, not what they say. A lot of people say a lot, achieve very little. Only this year have I started actually putting myself out there that I want to come and do stuff like this, because now I've done something to back up the words that I might speak, you know? So yeah, it's just about having confidence in yourself, having something in your life that you've done already. It doesn't have to be within that sector, but you can say, oh, I've built a chain of estate agencies and exited. How many business owners have exited? Very few. Most people have no idea how to exit a business. You're uniquely placed for that. So it doesn't matter what sector it's in.
How are you funding? How are you finding and how are you funding the acquisitions? Because that's two big parts of the jigsaw, isn't it?
Yeah. So find the acquisitions like any other direct-to-vendor method, whatever it might be. Email campaigns, letter campaigns, networking, network marketing, word of mouth from other people. Once you've done one, the word gets out that you transact. The solicitor that you might use will have other deals that they're doing. They'll say, well, Andrew's done this. You should speak to him. It just gets out there. But getting the first one is always the hardest, very much like property.
Yeah.
Being consistent with your messaging. So I post religiously on social media every day.
Is that just from last year?
No, I've always done it.
Always done it.
And like the stuff, and the people are watching, and whether you know it or not.
Yeah, 100%.
The hotel that we bought last year, and we bought a portfolio of 28 houses last year as well. Both of those came from people that have been watching me since 2020, and only last year did they think, oh, actually, maybe you can help, you know? So it's about consistency. You never know who's watching, and it builds credibility. Get out there, market, word of mouth, etc., etc. Financing, you know yourself, there's lots of different ways you can finance businesses. You can do full leverage buyouts where you finance a bit of the asset to give the guy the down payment. You should always have deferred consideration, in my opinion. I wouldn't do a deal without a deferred consideration element, especially not now. I've done a couple. Luckily, we've got deferred considerations on them, but stuff comes out of the woodwork all the time.
Look, what type of stuff? That would be good for people to understand.
Well, so a lot of people. So if you're the seller of a business, you want everything on day one. Because you want your money, yeah, you want to get paid, which is fine. If you're the buyer of a business, you want to pay as little upfront as possible, and it's not because you want to get one over on the seller. It's risk mitigation.
100%.
So, for example, you could take over a business, and 3 months down the line, there could be this sudden VAT investigation that you knew nothing about, and there might be 200 grand worth of VAT that have been hidden. And if you've given the guy all the money, and now he's suddenly got to find another 200 grand, you're not going to get it back off the seller. He's disappeared. He's on a world cruise. So you've got to have something. It's easier to withhold, sort it out legally, and then square it up than it is to try chasing someone who's disappeared or spent the money, because that happens all the time. So it's just about mitigating risk. It could be the VAT, it could be an insurance claim for someone, public liability that wasn't going to pay out that you knew nothing about because it didn't come up in your disclosures or your due diligence. It could be literally anything. It could be an employee suing you under the Equality Act 2010. It could be literally anything at all. But if you've paid everything up front, you'll never get it back.
It's a lot of risk, isn't it?
It's a lot of risk. So it's about spreading the risk.
Yeah.
And it also, the other thing it does do is it ties the seller, whether they like it or not, but you've got to think of yourself, it ties the seller into being interested in how well the business performs. So they are less likely to go and badmouth you to his previous customers and get rid of half of your turnover by saying, I don't work there anymore. They need you to be successful. Now, is it Lindy's Law? Something, I can't remember the real name, but something like Lindy's Law says that the length of time a business has been in operation for, statistically, it's likely that the business will be in operation for at least that length of time. So if you buy a business that's 30 years old, statistically, it's likely to be at least another 30 years.
I knew that theory, sort of, the longer it's been around, the better, but I didn't know there was actually
there's a phenomenon that's proven with it.
Yeah.
So every extra year that it's running increases its chance that it's going to be around even longer. Mm-hmm. And when you've got that length so that's why I only buy businesses that have been around at least 15 years.
Right.
So that's one of my criteria. I don't buy anything younger than that. Yeah. Because it's not been around long enough to go through a cycle, let alone, any proper economic trade wind problems. So you got that. They're likely that the person that you're buying it from knows every customer on a personal level. So if they disappear and say the wrong thing, a lot of your clients can go with them. So you've got to weigh that into it as well. So likelihood is that buying a business is one of the most risky things you can do, but you can decrease the risk and plan for it if you structure the deferred payment properly.
Mm. Why did you like the security business? Has it got a nice business model? Is it sticky?
It's fabulous. It's been around. It was incorporated in 1988, I think, but it was around before that. So it's about 30 years old altogether. It turns just under £1 million. It's not had the owner within the business for the last 5 years. He's had his own issues, which made him realise he wanted to sell because life's too short. It's had an MD in there for over 10 years who stayed with it. So no owner input, no marketing whatsoever over the last 5 years. It's ticked along beautifully, being a profitable enterprise since then, and there's so much potential in it that it just made perfect sense to buy it. And the owner was realistic about how much the business was likely to be worth, and how you're likely to get paid from selling a business like that rather than winding it down.
How did you go and get in touch with the owner? Was it through a broker or?
No, that was word of mouth.
So
nice. He heard through somebody that we'd transacted already, and we were looking for something else.
Nice.
And just got approached.
Yeah, perfect. That. What about the revenue model? Is it like recurring income? Was it?
Yeah, so it's a combination of things actually.
Nice.
So we have maintenance contracts which are recurring. We have remote CCTV monitoring. So we've got a geezer that sits in a little control room 24 hours a day looking at cameras. And we get paid monthly for that as well. So we have a couple of recurring revenue streams. Contract with the police for boarding houses up. So because we've got manned patrols as well, so we have recurring revenue with people in cars going out on a night, checking premises. And if there was a break in, they'd go and board somewhere up. So we've got a recurring revenue stream with that. And then we do big installations, so massive CCTV installation on a big factory, or a new Marks and Spencers, or you name it, and fire risk assessments, because that's a big thing at the minute. Fire regs are changing this year, so interlinked fire things, all the mist. It's like big HMOs, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And in massive commercial buildings, do all that. Entry and exit barriers, key fobs to get into places like here, all that. We do it all with a great consumer base and no marketing.
It's just surprising, isn't it?
Yeah.
I spoke to 3 business owners today, actually, but I've been speaking to them over the last week, and they're turning over between, say, 1 and 2 million, and they don't do any marketing.
Yeah.
They don't do any proactive sales.
It's crackers.
One of them didn't have a website.
Right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
This is the kind of stuff I look for.
Yeah.
So that kind of revenue of around 1 million or more, less than about 5, because by the time you get to 5, you're starting to get the interest of the more mid-size companies. Manager in place, longevity, they've been around a while. And once you've got that, and they're profitable. So once you've got all those things, that's exactly what you want to look for, especially if there's something you can see where you can turn the dial on it, like no marketing. Because something like that, like those businesses, if you can put some marketing behind it and get some new leads in, your revenue's going up, isn't it?
Yeah. My only concern with these businesses, I think the owners are a bit involved, a bit too involved, But it's like, the one that you've got was perfect. You had an MD and the owner was doing whatever he was doing.
Yeah.
Where these are quite involved, they're sort of overseeing and getting involved in a few bits. So
Right.
that's what I need to navigate,
Yeah. Well, it depends how you tie them up, really, in
Yeah.
terms of, those. If the owner is very involved and there's big key person risk, then I would be looking at, rather than a straight deferred consideration, I'd be looking at some sort of deferred element plus an earn-out, so that they remain involved and they're responsible for some of the turnover. If they meet the turnover targets that they are responsible for because they are involved with it, then they get X. If they don't, they get Y. And just spread that over a period of time.
One of them is he would love to stay on. Like it's his baby, He bought the business in 2000. It's been going since like the 90s or whatever. He joined on a YES scheme, bought the business in 2001, and bless him, he just seems lonely. So he's got 2 girls, and not obviously they don't want to get into like manufacturing,
Yeah.
And
well, why would they?
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's the other thing. So a lot of these businesses, like, people think that, you've got a business, you're the owner of a business, you hand it down. The kids have not seen the parents, because the parents have been doing 100 hours a week in this business. They don't want it.
Yeah.
So who's the guy going to sell it to? Or the lady, who they're going to sell it to? Well, the staff don't want it either. Most of the staff wouldn't have the first clue about running it, or they wouldn't want the risk, or for their own life choices or circumstances, they've not got any assets that they could guarantee the finance with, or the owner doesn't want to prolong it that long in a management buyout. So what do? Most of them either just wind it down and close the doors, or they think, estate agents sell houses, so business agents sell businesses. I know, I'll ring a business agent, and the business agent turns up and says, oh, Mr. Smith, absolutely, you sell shoelaces. Oh, yes, you're making £100,000 a year loss. Oh, I've got people lining up to buy businesses like yours, and they're willing to pay $5 million for it. Would shall we that'll be your asking price? Oh, yes, that'll do. Yeah, well, sign here, £60,000 signing up fee, and we'll get you sold. And they just sign up.
That is the model, though?
That is the model. And they spend they buy into getting listed, and the guy takes it back to the office, says, another listing there, 60 grand, thanks very much. And there's a little person in the back office that's got 500 of these that have come in that week, and they're the ones responsible for trying to sell it. So they stick it on a website, and no effort is made whatsoever to sell these businesses. And that's brokers.
Have you done a deal through a broker?
I've tried. I spent a year trying.
Yeah.
And in the end, in fact, it wasn't a trucking MOT company. There was a physical. I know you've had a guest on an acquaintance of mine, Nathan Winch, and I spoke to him. I spoke to Nathan about this deal that I was doing. It was a HGV trucking company, logistics company. I got right to the end, and then the broker stepped in and didn't like the structure of it, even though the owner had agreed. And so the broker came in at the end and said, we've got more interest in the pipeline. By that point, there's a lot goes on before that, but by that point I'd had enough. So I said, right, okay, good luck to you. And it's still not sold, and that's 2 years ago.
How do you know Nathan?
How do I know Nathan? It's a good question. Property, I think.
Yeah,
around the Darlington property scene. He was on my podcast, because I have a podcast. He came on that. And Sam Cook, who's been on as well.
On, yeah.
So it's a small world, the property world, isn't it?
It is. Is your passion property, or is it acquisitions and business?
My passion is building relationships and doing deals, whether it's property or business.
Yeah.
I like people, top and bottom of it.
Yeah. I've seen that you're in the Prosperity Network.
Yeah.
Is there any other networks that you're involved in, or was that the only one that you've joined? Or
I've tried most of the property networks.
Have you?
Yeah, I've tried most of them. The only one...
Be controversial, good ones and bad ones.
Yeah. The only one that I would happily endorse, genuinely, is Prosperity.
I've heard nothing but... I'm not a part of it, but I've heard nothing but good things about that. I said to my... to one of the other directors of the auction company that I'm involved in, I think, we should look at getting in that just for purely the networking.
It's brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant. I have no real affiliation.
Yeah. Declaration
of interest. I sit next to Danny Inman at United. We have a season ticket in the executive suite at Old Trafford. We sit next to each other. But apart from that, he's I liked and signed up to Prosperity before I got the season ticket. That's just a happy coincidence, a happenstance. But yeah, all of the others that you could possibly name, I would not recommend any of them. But Prosperity is a place where people do some fabulous stuff.
Yeah. Is there any that you'd be happy to say stay away from?
Anything, Samuel Leeds.
Yeah.
All his shit. My USP, if I've got one, is credibility and ethics. So anything that flies against what I perceive to be an ethical way of doing stuff, or an ethical way of treating the people that you get into that community, I'm happy to say no. So Samuel Leeds, the geezer that's in Monaco all the time.
Yeah, he's got a bad rep, hasn't he?
Yeah. Rob Moore, I can't abide his stuff. Disrupting. He couldn't even disrupt his own bathwater by the looks of him. I'll probably get myself into trouble. Everybody apart from Kevin Wright's a good guy. I like Kevin.
Finance guy.
Yeah, I like Kevin. In the construction world, Paul Tinker. I like Paul.
Yeah.
But in the property community world, it's only Prosperity that I would happily endorse.
That's a good bit of advice, to be honest. I think a lot of property people watch this. I'm from a property background, and I think that'll be valuable to someone for sure.
Yeah, for a non-paid network, you've got to look at TPT in Darlington.
Yeah.
There's some nice people in there. Boise and Paul, I know them very well. That's a good local free network to be a part of. You have to pay to get for the events. It's like £10, I think, to turn up to a networking event. But there's a lot of good people in that. A lot of good people have helped me in my career, actually. So can't say anything bad about TPT. But with Prosperity, people pay reasonable sum to be there. And if you go to...
Is it a couple £100 a month? Or?
No, not even that. £70 now, I think. And the value that you get for it's amazing. Then you can pay more than that to get the networking events and the mastermind days and all the rest of it. This is an advertorial for Prosperity.
Yeah.
Danny, if you're watching or listening, you owe me something. But the mindset and the motivation of the people that are committed to being there is what sets it apart. It's the people within it. It's not Danny. Danny's a nice fella and he does a lot of stuff himself. But that's what sets it apart from the other people who are just hobbyists. Nobody in there wants to be a hobbyist property person. They all want to be a professional, full-time property person.
The training I'd done was a lot around mindset, and that's the sort of it attracted people who were come from difficult situations and unfortunate things that happened to them. But yeah, it was more around mindset, and I think people got the benefit of the mindset training rather than the actual property stuff. When I went there, I was doing deals and stuff, and I
Sounds like someone from Redcar.
Yeah. I was doing deals at the time, and I went to him and said, I've got some deals. Do you want to talk about them? Potentially people can buy them. We could talk through them, and nothing was said about it.
Yeah.
It's more mindset. Which.
Yeah. It's a bit too close for home for me to be calling people out like that, because there's a lot of people around here that like that particular person.
Yeah, I like him as well, to be
I've
fair.
never met him,
just,
but again, I don't like some of the tactics and the things that go on.
Yeah. In the M&A side of things, have you done any training, or are you in any masterminds with that?
Yeah, I did Jonathan Jay's mastermind.
Did you? How did you find that? Because he's probably one of the most controversial ones in that space, isn't he?
Yeah, I like Jonathan.
Yeah.
So they all say the same stuff. They all teach the same stuff.
Is that all from Jeremy Harbour?
Yes, they all come originally. I think he was the first, and then you got the Carl Allen and Jonathan.
I like
Jay.
Carl Allen as well. I'm
Yeah.
listening to a lot of his stuff on YouTube at the moment.
Yeah, and then there's quite a few. Pick which one you prefer the delivery style from. That's the top and bottom of it. It's the action you take from the knowledge you get that will get you the results. It's not the person teaching you. So find the person that you resonate with, or you don't mind, as because you might not like any of them, but the one that you don't mind the least. Pick that person that you can tolerate the most. Let's put it like that, and just take the knowledge, put it into action. I do like Jonathan as a person. I know he ended up in trouble with his roll-up of nurseries, but he has done some fabulous deals in the past. There's no denying that. That one didn't end particularly well, but he's got that badge of experience that you can learn from as well. So I don't ever want to learn from someone that's not had a bad time. I want to learn from someone that's had the ups and the downs, and they're still going. And I'm sure he does more training than he does business acquisition these days. I'm sure that's, but that's fine. I've met some really good people through his community as well, and going to his mastermind and networking stuff. So, yeah, I like Jonathan Jay.
I'm thinking about doing the Harbour Club.
Yeah?
Thinking about doing it, yeah.
Do it, man.
Yeah. I know. I don't know why. I just don't go for it. I mean, I'm speaking to the guy who sort of signs you up at the moment, and he's shot in a freebie. I don't know if it is a freebie, but he's telling me it is. It's a deal fest in Dubai, which I think might have got me over the edge. That'll be cool to go in June time. But a mastermind that I'm in at the moment, Ross Tompkins, he went through the Harbour Club. Do you know Ross?
I've spoken to him. I don't know him.
Yeah, he's from the...
He's a physio.
Physio background, yeah.
I spoke to him about physiotherapy when I was buying the physio business. But yeah, he's an interesting fella, actually. He looks like he's
been on the podcast.
Has he?
Yeah.
I haven't watched that. He looks like he's doing, trying to grow some health-related companies, including testosterone replacement therapy and stuff like that. Alphagenics or something they've called it.
He's got Alphagenics, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Good luck to him.
Yeah. Some good people. It's just, it is the network, isn't it? Because through the training I'd done, I didn't take much property stuff away from it. But what I have took is an amazing network in terms of I've JV'd, first customers for my business, and people who I still talk to today. So
I'll tell you somebody else. I don't know if you follow them. You probably know the name, but James Sinclair. Do you know James?
Mate, I love James Sinclair.
Yeah. So.
So this is the wish.
I wondered if that's where it was from. Yeah. So James was on my podcast a while ago. And he won't mind me telling you, he had a bad back, so he kept ringing me up because he was getting married and he had a bad back, and he knew I was a doctor. I was the only doctor in his phone. But we went to his business masterclass last year, the end of last year, and that was at the not the NEC. The Excel in London, somewhere like that.
I'm booked on for this year already.
Oh, yeah. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was really good, and the people in the room were fabulous.
Unreal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I said that as well. So I'd just done the business acquisitions one.
What, with James?
With James, yeah.
Right.
In I think it was November, I think it was.
Yeah.
And the guy over, we sat on a table like this. The guy over from me, like where you are, he had an £18 million e-commerce business. A couple of guys here were buying engineering businesses. This guy had a chain of domiciliary care stuff, and this is just on my table. There's another 10, 12 of them. Now compare that to the other rooms I'd been in. people had just not done any deals before.
Yeah.
You know, they were in careers that they weren't enjoying, and some of them just unemployed as well. And like, that's not a dig on them as a person, but you know, when you're paying thousands and thousands to be in a room, you know, you want to be in. You don't want to be the person who's doing the most in that room, do you?
No.
You know.
No, you want to be the one that's doing the least.
You want to be the one who's doing the least, and yeah, being in that environment was just crazy. It's the first time I'd been in an environment like that where everyone was just like, "Wow."
Yeah. I've got a lot of time for James actually, and what he's building there as well. And it's really clever how he does it, because all his leads, everybody in that room will come from his content. You know, they either watch his YouTube, they listen to his podcast. That's where everybody comes from. That's phenomenal. Very little advertising done. It's just all content marketing, and that's how he gets people in. It's phenomenal.
I was going to ask, you know, we were talking about these different trainers, and he said, you know, Jonathan's probably doing more training than he is business. And I was thinking, are there any trainers who are not doing that? But James and Claire's the one that is obviously doing way more business than he's doing training and seminars, isn't he? Yeah,
he's going absolutely gangbusters at the minute. Like, he's already at 40 million turnover.
Yeah.
And he's not even 40 yet.
Yeah.
So, and he's just bought a food transport business, and he's got another one at the minute that's going through. It's another 10 million to add to his turnover.
Yeah.
So he's...
Yeah.
Did I say a podcast that he was asked if he'd go on Dragon's Den? Somebody asked him if he'd do it.
Talking about that the other day.
Yeah, I think he will. He'll end up on there.
Reckon?
Yeah, he's going...
It'd be good if he did. Yeah.
He's heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
And good luck to him.
I think he's tried to get on it before.
Has he?
Yeah.
All right, okay.
I say this like I know him or I speak to him. It's just listen to all of his stuff. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? That content marketing buys you in, and then you'll end up going to his stuff.
Yeah.
Just like me. That's why I was there. So.
Have you done anything with him before that? Like, how did you get to know him on like in his phone and stuff?
Well, I got to know him because he came on my podcast and gave me his number.
Oh, so you asked him to come on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Did you just reach out to him?
Yeah. How did I hear about him? I heard about him through Nathan Winch, because some old YouTube videos of Nathan were Nathan and James travelling the country looking at houses.
Yeah.
And I just kind of then started following, like now and again the algorithm would throw me a YouTube video of James Sinclair, and I'd watch that, and then I've just followed him for years of what he's done and how he's grown, and I got inspired and like the common sense approach. And so I thought, I'll have a go. And I was going through a period of time where I wanted some reasonable names on my podcast, so I got James, and then I got Jonathan J, who came on as well.
Is it done over Zoom, or did you go to his office?
No, Zoom. I did him over Zoom, yeah. When I look back now, the quality's it's not like this. I've never done my own podcast in a studio before.
Yeah. The difficult thing about this is trying to get someone for like James up from the southeast to come here.
Yeah.
When you're starting out as doing a podcast, it's unrealistic, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But everyone can do a Zoom.
Yeah, that's
you've got much more time.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it might be brave and reach out to him and say, like, let's do a Zoom version of it.
Yeah, do it. He's he is all about. I'm sure he'd say yes. Obviously, I can't speak for him, but I'm sure he'd say yes because he loves doing stuff like this where he can get his message out and forget about it, and other people will watch it. But potentially for as long as it's up on YouTube. So.
Yeah, good stuff. What's the growth plans with the security company then? Is that where, like, how are you spending your days and your time and your energy like now? Because it seems you've got a hell of a lot on. Yeah,
so I break my week into chunks.
Do you?
Can't do it any other way. So we got the security company in December. I think it's 6th of December. And then I flew to Thailand for a month on the 9th. And then I came back from Thailand in January. So I've only really started to get to grips with the security company now. What I'm learning is that there's a lot of work to do in terms of systems and processes. What I didn't realise, so when you run a group of NHS practices, there's a lot of stuff in the NHS, which systems and processes that is so far and away further advanced than most businesses are run.
Do you think that's because it's regulated?
Yeah, more than likely, yeah. Like everything is by the book. There's a system and a process from a massive business that is ingrained in every little part of the NHS. So our group of practices, by the time I left, I think we were turning over 3.5-4 million quid by the time I left. But a lot of GP practices, so most people don't realise that a GP practice is a small business. Your income, your revenue, is essentially you only have one customer, and that's the NHS. So you get your revenue from the NHS, then there's the partners, you own it, you own the business, you pay your staff, your overheads and everything else, and what's left at the end of the year is your profit that you split between you. But even in small practices where your revenue might be £500,000 or even less, there are monthly management accounts that are in there. There are snapshot P&Ls that you can look at any time. There are feedback and appraisal processes for every member of staff. It's all there already, and you wouldn't get that. Most businesses, if you asked 90 out of 100 businesses that are turning over £1 million whether they do monthly management accounts, they'll say no. They'll do it at the end of the quarter. They've got no idea what's coming. They've got no way of knowing what's in the pipeline. They might know what's in the data book, and they've no idea the value of the work that's being done that week. That's most businesses. They're flying. I think I did a post on this week. They're flying blindfolded. And they're reacting. They might get a big VAT bill and think, I need to get some more revenue in, so they'll work to get some sales in, so they get the money to pay the VAT bill. And that's how these businesses are built. And when I was looking at buying them, I seen one business that was £4 million turnover, didn't have management accounts. But one of the reasons that I was looking for businesses that get to £1 million is by the time you get to £1 million, you've got to have some sort of financial reporting at some point, or you're paying someone. But some of them still don't. They just do it themselves. The owner does it and does it by feel or what's in the account that month. Do you know what I mean? So, long-winded answer. What am I doing most of my time? I'm implementing systems at the minute. I'm implementing pipeline value, work that we're doing value, debtor book value, shortening debtor days, because having a long debtor book kills businesses. We've got some debts that we've clawed in now, but when we took it over, we had debts that were 2 years old. You can have a massive debtor book with huge amount of money in it, but if it's not in your bank, it's pointless. So shortening creditor days, shortening debtor days,
extending creditor days.
Extending creditor days. I just like a quick turnover.
Done.
Yeah, so bring everything in so that you know what you're dealing with, and then it's all about planning what's in the pipeline. You've got your recurring revenue, so you can bank on that. But then, how many installs have we got? If we haven't got enough installs in March, why not? What can we do about it? And slowly. And I tell you another community I'm a member of that I must endorse: Entrepreneurial Circle.
All right, yeah.
If you've got a business that's turning mid six figures into anything into a couple of £1 million turnover,
yeah,
they are perfect for you.
Is that local to here, or is it?
They have regional meets.
Okay, yeah.
But it's based in Birmingham, Solihull.
Yeah, I was one of my Josh who coming to this podcast. He put something online, and it might have been that Entrepreneur Circle.
It's fabulous.
I think I'm joining. He's going to refer me, and he said you get £150 ticket or something to the black.
Yeah, you might do. Yeah, it might be the offer. But Nigel Bottrell, who runs that, I don't know him, but he's like a force of nature in terms of what he knows about marketing and shaping your business up.
Josh was saying,
if you like James Sinclair, you'll love it.
Yeah. I think is Sarah Davies in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it must be the same one. If that's what it is, yeah.
Yeah, and lots of businesses have gone through it. So there was, so they have something called the master plan, which is, they have various tiers. Like every good business, like James Sinclair talks about, they have various tiers. You can pay like Prosperity, you pay the lowest to get, the basic, and then you can keep paying more to get more and more from it.
Yeah.
So the next step up is something called master plan, which is a higher monthly amount. You get coached through various sections of your business growth to your endpoint, or then you can go into the mastermind, which is with Nigel, and you pay even more. And then there's one-to-one with Nigel and all the rest of it. So it depends on how much you want to pay.
What's his name? Nigel
Bottrell. So I'm in EC. I've got a coach in EC, part of our master plan. And our goal, I don't mind telling you, with the security company, is to change its revenue into its net profit within the next 3 years, and then within 5 years be in a position to exit should we wish.
I spoke to Nathan about that in terms of buying and then selling. Because what I found really difficult when I bought businesses is like the staff culture. It's probably the hardest thing, isn't it? And like, how do you come into this business and you share the vision, but that vision is to then transact on it again? It leaves them a bit like, like a bit like I feel like commodity, doesn't it? And a bit like, So, yeah, I mean, like, what's your thoughts around that?
Well, speaking personally, my vision isn't necessarily to exit. My vision is to exit if I wish.
Yeah.
Which is a very different thing. So, in order to exit a business properly for decent money, like life-changing money, I'm talking 8 figures, you need to have systems and processes in place that will easily be absorbed into a bigger organisation. The level I'm working at, the sub £5 million turnover businesses, don't have that. So that's a value improvement you can make. Everybody in that organisation will benefit from that. By the time you get to the point where you can exit, it should be spinning off enough money that it doesn't really alter your life if you exit or not. So why would you exit? Well, you might exit because you just don't fancy running a business anymore. You might exit because you've got a health concern, but you're better off building it to get to that point so that should the worst happen, you can exit, than to just keep going as you are, fumbling along, being reactive, and not having something as optimized as it can be. And everybody benefits from it being optimized. The more revenue you bring in, the better you can treat your staff. The more staff you can bring in, the more training they can do, the better they can, you can give them private healthcare and all the rest of it. All the stuff gets better if you bring in more revenue. You bring in more revenue by getting your systems and processes in place, management team sorted out, your marketing sorted out, your debtor and your credit days sorted out. It just follows on. One thing follows the next. It's not easy. All these words make it sound like it's something. It's so hard. It is so difficult. It's unbelievable, especially when you buy a business in the first few years, because not only have you got to do all that, but you've still got to pay the guy or the girl their money every quarter or every year or whatever you've arranged.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? It's like, because, especially if if you leverage it as well and finance something on the balance sheet, that's going to eat into your margins even more, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's something I've been thinking about recently as well. But talk to me a bit more about how you split your week up. You said you block your week out. How do you do that? Is it like morning and afternoon? Could be working on different things, or is it like a day here, or is it like hourly? Like, how do you do that? 'Cause that's
I typically do it in days.
Yeah.
So typically Monday is the security company. Friday is typically the physiotherapy company.
So what does the Monday look like then? So is that a meeting with the team and outlining strategies, reviewing metrics and everything like that, and putting a plan in place for this is what I want done for next Monday, sort of thing?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. Meet with the MD on the morning, go through any issues, because at the minute we're trying to recruit more engineers to do more installations and stuff. There's lots of learning that we're still doing in that business. So whilst there's kind of a strategy element to those calls, we're still learning about, what each individual thing that we might do is priced at. Why is it priced like that? What can we do about that? There's a lot of learning that goes on in the very early days. And you don't want to make too many changes too soon, because, as you say, if the people think, if the people that you work with or work there start feeling uneasy, that's a red flag. So you have to be very mindful that these people have been there for a long time, longer than you, know it better than you do, even though you've got your vision, So there's a lot of that goes on to start with. Then in the afternoon, I usually either look at how we can change the marketing, I look at the customer profile that we've got, so that's a big piece of work I'm doing at the moment, what is our average customer value, how much we can spend to acquire a customer, how is it possible that in our market that we could, because the residential security market, for example, is quite saturated. Every man and his dog can put a burglar alarm in, or a CCTV camera outside the front of your house, or a Ring doorbell. Everybody does that. So where is the less competition? Identifying those areas. They call it red ocean and blue ocean thinking. Red ocean thinking is, what's the red ocean I'm in? It's where all the competition is. It's residential burglar alarms and stuff. Where's the blue ocean where there's no competition? It might be putting fire extinguishers in private jet airports. Who knows? It could be anything like that. Do you know what I mean? But it's identifying those areas, then working back. How do I get into them? What do I have to do? Create a step-by-step. How have we got the team to do it? So there's a lot of planning that goes involved. So that's what I spend a lot of my time doing at the minute. Fortunately, my business partner, Philip, also helps. So there's two of us in the M&A world. Philip Jordan couldn't do most of this stuff without him. And he picks up a lot of the personnel requirements. He's a very hospitality-based person. So I think I'm quite good with people, but he's unbelievable at relationship building. So I let him crack on with that. And he's originally from sales as well. So stuff like if I identify that I've got a list of airports that he needs to go and visit to get CCTV in there, he won't think twice about knocking on those doors. And, he's fabulous like that. So I spend a lot of time doing that. Tuesday is usually optimizing or dealing with issues within property. So the property side of stuff that we do, I sound like a right big head, but the property side of stuff we do, we've got about 100 bedrooms across the northeast that are serviced accommodation.
Oh, is that what you've done with them?
Yeah, either the hotel that we've got or a lot of luxury SAs. And that's a business on itself. Yeah. So, that's another thing that I spend quite a lot of time, but that's a bit haphazard. That tends to bleed into my other days doing that. And then the portfolio that we might have bought last year or the other houses that we've got, any issues tenant-wise, all that.
Are you using an agent? Are you doing it yourself?
Most of them are with agents. We've probably got 15, 16 that we're still self-managing.
Okay.
But again, so Philip mainly deals with that, but if there's any issues that, we need to discuss. What else do I spend my time doing? Then with the refurbs that we're doing, that was probably Thursday. So I might spend Thursdays sorting out refurbs, the build teams, because that's all self-managed. So that's my side of the property business. Is I do look after the refurbs and the teams, and then look for new leads. So direct to vendor campaigns, because I'm currently looking for assisted sales or exchange with delayed completions for kind of lease option type stuff. So I'm doing a lot of that because I want another couple of portfolios this year if I can.
Letters or Facebook ads?
Letters, emails, and identifying estate agents who might have problems that they need solving.
Yeah.
So you might know people like that. Yeah. So then Friday is physiotherapy. This morning, speaking to the manager at our physio business. So physio business is really interesting. We bought it off the two owners that founded it, and they're two very experienced physios, lovely people. They'd built this business despite having to work in it and despite the challenges that come with running a business and still working full time in there, and they'd got it to kind of mid 5 figures turnover. I wouldn't have normally gone for a business with mid 5 figures turnover. It's a bit too small. But health businesses, if you do exit and get them to a point where they exit, you tend to get a higher multiple. And I was comfortable, and I wanted to get one over the line. So that's why I ended up with this one. Now, we're trying to build that. So we've recently brought in a physiotherapist who's all his career has worked either for Premier League teams or Cirque du Soleil, or he's got a stellar CV. And we're setting up an elite sports physiotherapy business in the heart of the Midlands because there isn't one, and he's leading that. So at the minute we're sorting all that out, getting all the state-of-the-art kit in there and investing heavily in that. And so there's a lot that's going into that to build and grow that. And then Saturday and Sunday is usually spent doing service accommodation or marketing for the various businesses that I've got. So I'll spend a lot of my time very conscious of what James Sinclair talks about, where you should have 80% of your time trying to generate revenue. So I'm trying to get to that point. At the minute, it's probably 40% that's revenue-based. And then amidst all that, I've got, my other stuff and investor relations and all the rest of it. So, yeah, busy.
Just a bit.
Yeah. Oh, and on either Saturday or Sunday, I usually go to Old Trafford.
You got kids?
They're grown up.
Are they?
Yeah, they've got jobs.
So you can fully focus on.
Yeah, I'm lucky that way. That is one thing. But, you know, I've done quite a bit still as a full-time GP. And then since, the massive growth really happened last year once I'd retired. So I had the Halo, the physiotherapy business, and the hotel lined up to buy kind of May, June last year, and I knew I needed to leave because I couldn't run everything and still be a GP. So that's why I left in May last year. And then once I left, and then I had a free week, so to speak, it kind of felt like the brakes got let off and I was able to do some stuff.
Are your properties all Teesside based?
Redcar, Darlow, Borough, Shildon. Got a guest house in South Shields, 9-bedder. Seaton Carew, and side of kind of Newton Aycliffey type way.
So like northeast based. Are you tying them up with? Are they all on SA? Like, is that the model, or are you
No,
the councils and?
we've got a bit of social housing. We've just got 3 that are finishing this week, today. The 5-bed HMO finished today. That's been signed up by social housing, and I've got 2 others. One's in Newton Aycliffe and one's in Shildon. 2 3-bed family homes that are. Next week they get finished.
Nice.
And then if you 20 buy-to-lets or 30 buy-to-lets or something.
Okay, so you've got a section of buy-to-lets as well.
Yeah.
The majority is.
There's
SA.
SA is my bread and butter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it contractors or holiday lets?
No, holiday lets. So I started off. We had. We still do actually. We have the region's only disabled holiday let. So for people in wheelchairs in Redcar. And I was going to build a portfolio of these. So it's great development. You take the roof off of the bungalow, add another story. It's all open plan inside, fully regulated to the Doc M regs for accessible properties. If they're coming with carers, the person needs care. The carers stay upstairs in their own master suite. Downstairs, they've got the fabulous, it's called a profiling bed, where people with disabilities get, the beds that could do this so they can have care on the beds and hoisted and all the rest of it, fully kitted out. So we did the first one in Redcar, and then I was building one in a place called Carlton near Red Marshall.
Okay.
And it was 4 weeks away from finishing. It got burnt down in November last year. Completely torched, but that's a different story.
On purpose? Or?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was on half an acre that goes out into the countryside. It's a little thin plot, detached bungalow on a little thin plot that was half an acre in total. So you can imagine how long and thin it was. And somebody saw the plot that it was on, wanted it, burnt it down. The police came and said, we think it's likely to be these people that have burnt it down. It's quite common when they see a big plot like that to devalue it by burning it down, and then they'll come out of the woodwork and try and buy it in cash from you at a cheaper price, and that's exactly what happened. Yeah. So that was a big challenge last year. So it's been a mental year.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Because just when you were speaking there, you said you retired this year and you had a couple of stuff lined up. So I thought this had been going on since 2013, 15 time.
No, it's just been, just exploded really. But it started in 19 really. The first venture, which was the first property, but then I genuinely have spent every waking minute trying to improve myself.
Yeah. Mentally,
mindset, personal development, meeting people, networking, all that stuff. Doing stuff like I'm doing a talk next week in Sunderland, and part of my talk is about risk. People are scared of risk. There's a lot of people that you see out there that borrow money, can't pay it back, all that stuff. We've never done that. We borrow money, but we always pay it back. But now we've got to the size where our revenue is so big that that's not even a consideration for us, really. But when you first start, it really is. So how do you trust these people that can take your money? And, if something goes wrong, what happens? Well, fortunately for me, I had a job where if the worst did happen, I could have worked it off. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But then eventually you get to a size where the revenue is such that you're kind of insulated from it and everybody's a bit more secure. But it's all about risk and what you're comfortable doing, It's that whole topic of risk management and personal risk tolerance is a very interesting topic on its own.
What's had the biggest impact on yourself in terms of like leveling up from going from a single buy to let to doing bigger deals? Like, what is that thing that's...
What in terms of what have I learned? That's
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, like what's the thing that you say you do differently now than you did then?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you quite simply. When I first started, it was deposit and mortgage or cash purchase. Everything. That was what I thought. That's what I knew. Now, deposit and mortgage or cash are at the bottom of my list of options. So whatever I look at, I always think, can I do something creative?
And if you can't, it's a non.
Well, unless it's an amazing deal.
Yeah.
But I'll work down a list of options. But in order to get to the creative stuff, you need to know the seller. You need to know what they need. You need to understand, where they're coming from. So a lot of stuff that we've ended up buying have been people that have needed a solution to a problem. They can't afford the running costs at the minute, or they need some equity out of it, but not everything. But it's a massive problem, or they've got a health problem and they just can't physically do it anymore, and they need somebody reliable that isn't going to pull their eyes out, that will look after it for them. They can own it in the end, So I always look for solving a problem rather than it just being about acquiring the asset. If you can solve somebody's problem to do it, you can usually get more favourable terms.
What would you do differently if you were to start again?
I wouldn't go to medical school.
Go straight.
Yeah.
Balls deep into it.
Yeah, I'd go straight into it. But then I probably wouldn't have been able to kind of rely on my professional background as much as I have.
Yeah.
So it wasn't wasted time. And I did a lot of great stuff as a doctor. I really did enjoy it a lot of the time. Just that 2012-ish where I got soured. But by that point, I'd already done a lot of medicine, What would I do? I don't think I'd do much else differently, really. I'm a big believer in we are where we are in our lives due to the decisions that we've made along the way. If you want to be somewhere else, make different choices. And you can choose today. You don't have to wait. And that's how I live my life at the minute. I've got an idea where I want to go. Will I end there? Who knows? Something could happen along the way. It's happened plenty of times in my life.
You're big on journaling?
I do a bit of journaling. I don't do it every day.
No.
I do it if I've got a lot on my mind. I do it. If I'm worried about something, which happens all the time when you've got a lot of plates spinning, I'll write stuff down. But what I tend to find is if I feel uneasy, then I've got an unidentified problem. So if I wake up feeling anxious, there's something going on. And then I'll journal until I get to the bottom of why I feel anxious. Once I've identified it, then that's the start of the solution. Because once you know what you're dealing with, you can create a plan. And by taking action to whatever that plan is to solve that problem, the worry disappears then. Once you start making a step on the path to whatever it is that you've identified, then, every day after that bungalow caught fire, I felt uneasy every single day. And they tried to burn it down another twice afterwards. And I was down at the James Sinclair masterclass thing. Got woke up at 4:00 in the morning in the hotel, phone ringing. It was the next door neighbour of the bungalow. Just letting you know, Andrew, your bungalow's on fire again. And this is an old woman that's next door. She didn't need us turning up, taking the roof off her next door house, spending 8 months developing it, and then for it to get burnt down twice. Do you know what I mean? Mm. And I just felt so bad for her. And I couldn't figure out whether it was just I was worried or whether I was disappointed or what it was that I was so worked up about. So I wrote it all down, and eventually I came to the notion that actually what it was I was disappointed in myself for impacting on the neighbours. And I'm massive on relationships. I can't get that across enough. That's what my life's about. Not impacting other people unless it's in a positive way. And I was really upset with myself for that. Even though it wasn't particularly my fault, if I hadn't bought the place, it wouldn't have got burnt down. Mm. So I had some responsibility, and I accept that. So I sold it. And as soon as I made the decision to sell it, it was like the weight got lifted and I was able to sleep again. So it's just sometimes there's things that you can't quite put your finger on until you, and that's where journaling comes in for me.
Yeah, it does make you feel a lot better, doesn't it? What I realise as well when I start journaling, I realise that I'm sweating the small stuff, you know, the minor stuff. But
such as?
It's a good question. Like, I don't know if I can really answer it, but when I journal, so let's say if I, journal something down, or I'm feeling, like you say, anxious or like overwhelmed, and when I'm writing stuff down, I'm thinking, that's not actually as big of a deal, because you've seen it on paper. It might only be a few things. So yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. You're a work in progress. Everybody is, and I catch myself all the time. I think, I've got these bills to come out and I've got this revenue coming in. Am I worrying about it? Well, no, because should I worry about it? Well, no, because I know I've got this coming in. But you still worry about it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's the small stuff that you can sweat about. Yeah. But you slowly I'm slowly getting a thicker skin. I can't speak for anybody else, but I'm slowly getting a thicker skin and bigger things to worry about. And what will people think of me? That's something that's held me back a long time. Like having discussions with your team in the business that you might have bought about doing something, and you're worried that you might upset a staff member. Well, I don't like upsetting people, and that bothers me, but I'm not there to be liked, and I don't own it to be liked. I'm there to give them a secure job so they can pay their mortgage and look after their kids, and that I can have a profitable enterprise that rewards me for the risk I've taken. So you've just got to frame it in a different way sometimes. Mm.
Do you employ anyone at the holding company level?
No.
Is that something you want to do?
We're going to get to that point, I would think, quite quickly, because part of the growth strategy, along with the marketing and expansion like that, is acquisition. And once we start getting, into a situation where we've got a few different ones, or even two, then somebody is going to have to come up into the holding company to look after it. And I'm getting to the point with my business partner. I think that's probably why we don't need somebody in the holding company just yet. It's because there's two of us.
Yeah, good point.
And so Philip does an awful lot. And I think that's helped. But we are getting to the point where we have literally so much stuff going on that we could probably do with somebody. But then, another thing I think is there's so many ways that you can do stuff. Just in social media and marketing, we might spend 38 grand a year. Well, through it to an agency, but you could pay someone for that. You could have someone in-house, full time, pretty much. I don't know how much marketeers or videographers or whatever social media people earn. My daughter works for a social media company. She doesn't earn that, and she's full time. So we could bring somebody in-house. So there's stuff. But when you've got a lot going on, these decisions and that you make, they don't happen in a streamlined way. Quite often they'll occur to you whilst you're driving and you'll think, I should be doing that. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You'll know that. Yeah. So you're a work in progress. Nothing is straightforward. It sounds simple, but it's really not.
Yeah. It's funny that I had a similar conversation with Nathan, and basically said, he was like, systems and processes and a vision in all of my subsidiaries. And then we got talking, he was like, well, I don't do that in my holding company sort of thing, which is ironic because that's what I'm big on. You know, it's like build everything to sell, but I'm not building the holding company to sell with the procedures and systems in place, which sounds like you're...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm looking, it's going to, like the next few years is going to be a very interesting time, I think. And there's going to be a lot of, like the MD at the security company, she's fabulous. I'd love for her to be in the holding company looking after the group of security companies that we end up with. So, but we've already identified that, do you know? So there is a nod to it, but there's no definite plans in place yet. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Any other businesses that you're looking at other than security? Yeah,
I've had quite a few actually. And one thing I realised towards the end of last year, I had to get away. Fortunately, we had a holiday booked, but I was starting to get really knackered at the end of last year. I was weighed down by the bungalow fire, which happened towards the end of the year. And I had opportunities coming left, right and centre. And they were all too good to turn down. Like there was a textile company, there was a forklift truck hire company, all in different sectors, all fabulous, profitable enterprises. But I just thought you can drown in opportunity if you're not careful. You know, we'd got to a point where we thought we've really got to consolidate a bit now. And we find that, Philip and I joke quite often that, you know, just as we're sitting down, there's another job to do. Do you know what I mean? There's another opportunity. Just as like you get the hotel and the portfolio and all the rest of it settled into a nice place, there's another portfolio to buy or something like that. Do you know what I mean? You're off again. And that's what it's like with business acquisition. So we said no to about 3 last year. We had one that we were going to go and see this year, but we've decided, no, let's concentrate on what we're doing. Let's get these things properly sorted and cash flowing rather than chasing the shiny pennies. But in the second half of this year, I suppose we'll be looking for the next one. And what we found was that we were getting offered stuff in different sectors that weren't necessarily related. Luckily, the security stuff is related to the property, our commercial units and all the rest of it. We can, you know, spend fortunes on fire extinguisher servicing. You know, we can do that in-house now. So that works. But how would a forklift truck hire company fit in? It wouldn't really. So we're going to, unless it's a mega deal, we're going to start concentrating health and facilities management, upstream and downstream. Like we spend, you know, 5 figures every month on CCTV equipment to install. You know, it's the cost of sales, it's the cost of doing the job. Why don't we buy the supplier? You know, or why don't we buy somebody who spends a lot of money with us? So that's upstream and downstream in a little group. That's where we're going next.
How did you meet Philip, and is he 50-50 on everything that you do?
Yeah. He's not in the luxury service accommodation stuff, but the portfolios, the hotel and the businesses, he's my 50-50 partner. I met Philip through Prosperity.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so I met him at a networking event. So Philip and I, it's an interesting thing. So I look at it like we've both done our time in terms of what, like our own paths before we came together. And if it hadn't have been the right time, it wouldn't have worked. But by the time we came and went into business together, he'd done, I don't know, I think he had 40 odd houses of his own. He has a bar and a nightclub in Cheltenham that he owns. He's worked at the Hard Rock Hotel in Singapore, and he's very accomplished fella, really good at hospitality. It's like Mr. Disney. And I'd obviously done the hard yards with creative deals, because you don't scale to the level that I've scaled without being creative, and the business stuff and relationship building and all the rest of it. And we came together at the right time. And the thing that brought us together was the bungalow. I wanted him to work on the bungalow with me, because I wanted to elevate the customer experience, and I wanted his input as much as anything else. And he's amazing at raising finance, and that helps. So we came together on that, and everything else kind of just ballooned out of that.
Mm-hmm. What are your strengths in the partnership?
Probably don't have many. Talking.
Carrying you on his back.
Talking, yeah. I'm a good talker. What am I good at?
Do you have an area of expertise? Or do you think you're sort of a
Philip says that I'm very good at finding deals, finding opportunity and analysing them. That's what Philip would say. What do I think I'm good at? I don't think I'm very good at anything at all. And I don't want to think of myself as being very good at anything, because I want to always be in the mindset of needing to get better.
You got any plans to get into another mastermind?
Well, I'm in 2 at the minute. One is one's like more of a training course with Mark Shaw. Do you know Mark Shaw? He's a very interesting fella. Was a lawyer, and then owned a chain of estate agencies. He does a lot around creative finance. So I'm doing that. I'm doing the master plan with Entrepreneurs Circle. That's it for now, but I'm always looking. I have a thing where I spend 10% of my income on self-development, whatever that income will be. Always, every year I will do. It's just, don't ever know it all, but just slowly gain experience.
And where do you want to take what you're doing now over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah. To create profitable enterprises that I can exit if I wish. I want to be able to go anywhere I want with my family for as long as I want without needing to be concerned about anything. That would be the ultimate for me. But I absolutely love the hustle and bustle and grind. I can't live without it. So I'm a bit of kind
Entrepreneur's curse, isn't
a
it?
bit juxtaposed, really.
Yeah.
I don't like going on holiday. I can't go on holiday for more than a fortnight, really. Even after the first few days, I'm climbing the walls. So
if people want to reach out to, help you raise finance, buy businesses, where can they find you?
I'm most active on Instagram at Andrew_Threadgold, or on LinkedIn, or I have a website, www.andrewthreadgold.com.
So, my final question: if you had one piece of advice for your younger self, what would it be?
Get started. Don't wait. Don't think it doesn't happen to people like you. It happens to people who want it to happen. Whether whatever you want, you can achieve. You just need to figure out the first step, and then just say yes and figure it out.
Top man. Thanks so much for coming on, mate. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.